I got the numbers, and they're down. All right, does everybody show record? Obviously, everybody can tell that Sean's not here. I got some dummy trying to work this thing. Everybody say record on the top.
Junior AV.
All right. Yeah, I was no president of the AV club like Sean. I mean, he had that shit down. But he's unfortunately, I don't know, petting his horse, riding the horse,
he's
knocking people over with the horse.
Pulling the carriages, like
it's come Christmas time.
Rusty, yeah, he gets busy at his side hustle. So,
would you like a blanket?
What is this cold duck champagne?
Brute.
Oh shit! So I wanted to know, before we get into this, because we got a good guest today, but
right.
I want to know, now that we powered through No Kings Day, what was your favorite costume? Because there's a lot of cosplay weird stuff going on. I noticed with the No Kings. So
I like the guy out of Florida. He was dressed as the King of Diamonds with a crown on, and he couldn't answer a freaking question. He's a King of Diamonds. He had the crown on, and this reporter's asking a question. So what makes him a king? I don't know. I mean, so what is he doing? I don't know. Okay, way to go, King of Diamonds. What about yours?
So I saw. Well, there's some good ones here in Chicagoland here. I'll tell you that. I mean, they definitely stepped up. I mean, I saw. Pritzker was chugging along. I think he was able to make it 2 blocks with the before they had to give him oxygen. But there was some good ones. People blowing up, dinosaurs and unicorns and a lot of weird shit. But watching all the different news stories, I think it was Portland. They made it looked like a skate ramp that was supposed to look like the Constitution, and people were dressing up as bugs, and Trump was swatting them like they were ice. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I'll tell you, I'm definitely getting on Facebook Marketplace starting tomorrow, because hopefully all these costumes are going to be on there for Halloween. And I can grab something cheap. Because now that it's over, what are you going to do? You put it on Facebook Marketplace,
you're going to walk around with the King of Diamonds for the rest of your life? That's gay.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to answer the door for the trick or treaters. I'm going to be a blow up unicorn. Half price or I'm actually just going to go as a No Kings protester. So I'm just going to find some jorts and white Velcro New Balance shoes, and then and not work my upper body at the gym for 2 weeks straight.
Right. And the good news is they could put CNN will just put something on, the news from 2017. It's totally fine. It's totally covered.
It was entertaining. I'll tell you.
It was great because I'm, we're working and stuff like that, and everybody's looking at each other and nobody wants to say it, but does anybody sit in history class and know exactly what a king is? Because we're all kind of looking at each other like people would be, working and shit would be closed, and I don't know. So, but I love watching the reporters trying to ask questions. So what are you here for? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, this is all based on immigration and ICE and him blowing up cartel boats and I don't know, kind of doing the right thing. So. I guess people don't like Law and Order, I guess. So, but speaking of Law and Order, we have a great guest tonight. His name's Tegan Broadwater, and we're going to get into his story in a second. But I got to tell the story when I was on the road, and I pulled over my first FBI agent. So when you think of FBI agent, you just think of guys, suits, ties, and really they're doing some secret government stuff, right? Well, then, as you get to hear they're FBI SWAT. They're badass. these guys are top notch, and they jump on helicopters and go everywhere, and they do this high speed, low drag shit, right? I don't know. It's 1 a.m. I don't know. Some guy blows a stop sign. I pull him over, and I do my thing. He goes, yeah. He goes, does it help if I'm with the FBI? I go, yeah, of course it does. He goes, well, I don't have my badge on me because I'm coming from the gym. I'm like, oh, okay. What department are you in? I do health management waste. I'm like, bro, come, you got to be I'm FBI SWAT. I something. No, I do healthcare, healthcare fraud. Okay, I'm going to let you go just on that because nobody's going to make that up. So you're obviously not lying.
Hey, but listen, everybody's a cog in the wheel. Man. Everybody's got an important piece. Sometimes you're
but then you start working,
right? You're not.
But then we start working with federal agents. When I was on K9 and you were in the drug unit, I'm like, God damn, these guys do some really cool shit, but they just don't you need to advertise that. not health, not
Maybe he
healthcare
was
fraud.
working his way towards that. You gotta prove yourself.
Right. Anyway,
Well,
well,
Tegan,
you were,
welcome.
yeah,
Welcome.
Tegan, welcome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking the time to join us.
Before we
So,
go down too many rabbit holes here with
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I expect
Well-
nothing less. I've already been warned. It's all good.
So, but anyway, welcome to the show. So, Tegan's FBI, and he has a really, really cool story. He actually did some serious undercover work that made huge strides. And when this is some of the law enforcement work that civilians really don't realize that occur. These guys, they go deep undercover, and if you watch some of these guys on, the FBI guys on, and mainly seems to be FBI, ATF guys that really go undercover for gangs and serious cartels and
drugs,
weapons and motorcycle gangs and the mob. And when you really think about that stuff, everybody sits there and goes, yeah, no, well, it's cool. And don't get me wrong, it's cool as shit. It really, really is. But when you talk to the guys, the men and women that do it, I mean, you want to talk about putting your life on the line every day, because you don't know if you're going to walk into a room with plastic on the floor. You don't know, you just don't know what what you're walking into. I mean, seriously, at least for me, I had my dog, and I had to hold on for 7 minutes, and the cavalry was coming. And, with the people that do this deep undercover work, I mean, they're on their own, and, deep respect. And you're going to really enjoy today's show, because I think this is going to give you a little bit of a deeper understanding of what guys and girls do on a daily basis that you don't even understand. So welcome, Tegan. Please give us your background, please.
Well, thank you. That's generous, and I will clarify up front that I was assigned to the FBI. So there's a distinct difference between obviously being a task force officer and being an FBI agent. So I just didn't want to purport myself as such.
Oh, yeah.
But my story starts from fourth grade. I was destined to be a rock star. I was destined for stages only. Long hair. I was the guy that the only thing I knew about cops was that they pulled me over at every opportunity and asked if I had any drugs. So that was my experience growing up. It really was, right. Man. So I went to college for music and everything, and I went to college at a prestigious music school up here in North Texas, and would drive down on weekends and do gigs in Houston and stuff, and come back up after I did sets in order to make an 8 o'clock class. And more than once I got stopped by unmarked narc cars and everything. They would take everything out, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, because I just got done, and I guess this long-haired kid with his car weighted down. They kept thinking, "The hell's in this car? I think it might be fun."
Something, yeah. Why is there a canine every time?
Man, they would just strip all that stuff and take all my equipment out and leave it in the ditch, and then say, "All right, see ya." And I'd be like, "Dude." So
I've been there. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. Well, y'all know it's old school cop work, right? So I got to the point where the music industry kind of was burning me out. I was on the road a lot. I had a lot of private students at home, so I was actually making a living at it, but it was burning me out. Going to all these clubs and supporting a bunch of cokehead owners, and sharing two beds with 5 dudes in a Days Inn in Oklahoma City, trying to make it. And as much as I love that, I love music, and I love the guys I was with. Once I had a kid too, that was it. So I was like, man, I don't want to be gone when I have a kid. Yeah. So
right.
And since fourth grade, by this time I'm in my mid to late 20s. I'm thinking, well, I've been doing this. I haven't even thought of anything else. But we had a few cops that I had a little side gig that I used to do at this club in Fort Worth, and a handful of cops used to come watch, and I would tell them that I was thinking about getting out of the business and whatever, and they tried to talk me into doing police work. I was like, really? The fact that they even saw that in me was pretty admirable at the time. You got a picture like this. Right. I was thinking, am I being punked here? You guys want to kick me ass?
Right.
Not that they could have, even then, but so I ended up actually cutting 8 inches of hair off and going to get my driver's license picture retaken on purpose. Just told them I lost it because I didn't want anybody to, I was like, I won't have a hard enough time coming in green.
Right.
But I thought it would be exciting, and I think like a lot of people, I kind of wanted to do adventurous stuff. I dreamt of kicking doors, and I didn't have any experience at all whatsoever. So, but that being said, I did have a lot of experience in working with multicultural bands and touring on the road with guys as the minority in the band, and dealing with audiences of all different kinds of races. And I really felt like I had a rapport. Even as a kid in high school, I was the kid that hung out with jocks and kids that were in the smoking section. I was just friends with people. Just, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert, but once I get to know you, it's easy for me to kind of migrate to different types of folks. So when I went into law enforcement, my goal was I want to work undercover because I really thought that it was something that I could be really good at.
Yeah.
But I didn't know exactly what the purpose of that would be. It just sounded adventurous.
Right.
So from day one, all I did was politic toward getting into the worst parts of town so that I could gain more experience, so that I could eventually, we eventually petitioned my captains to start another weed and seed type program where I could, you know, learn to do some buys or some covered buys
Yeah.
with it, using informants, and just learn how it works, learn how to write warrants. And I was really fortunate that by the time I got to that real bad side of town, you know, narcotics was trying to hit bigger things. And I was like, man, we got every other house down here is, you know, is a decent lick for small timers. And so it was great experience for me. So, you know, as a 6'1" white stiff nerd to get into narcotics, you know, it's like, for me, it was like, I got to have the resume. So I was a hustler. So I hustled and was like, all right, well, I challenge you to find someone else that's applying for this that have already served, you know, 200, 300 dynamic search warrants and blah, blah, blah. And I've already got 6 or 7 CIs and this and that. So I worked my way into the narc unit in order to hopefully kind of learn from the more advanced cats and get into bigger cases. And as you guys know, most of the time, especially now, but even when I was going through, and I started in law enforcement in the late 90s, in 96. And by then there's still really, at least where I was at, and some of the other larger departments, we had, you know, our department was, you know, I don't know what we got, 1,600 or something. 1,700 cops or whatever at the time. And there was no deep undercover. There's no long-term undercover. I mean, it was basically trying to flip people is the longest any case went, because they're just trying to, you know, you have so many complaints. They're just trying to figure out a way to just run them through the mill,
Right.
get the complaints, you know, vacated. But that was really frustrating for me. And so I kept trying to figure out better ways to do things, but the opportunity came when the city council and the chief of police got together about a certain part of town, which ironically was a part of town that I had experience in working. And it wasn't even a beat. It was like a 6 square block area within a beat that was particularly gang ridden and violent, and they had so many problems there that they couldn't figure out how to eradicate the problems there. And so they said, basically, spare no expense. They had a killing, another killing that spawned all this conversation. So at the time, of course, I'm not in the conversation. I'm just a grunt, you know, so they have all this stuff. And so they want to throw all this stuff. So all of a sudden you're doing unmarked van jump outs, and you're doing dudes trying to write search warrants, and you're pulling over everybody that leaves the neighborhood. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know who they think these guys are, but that's the only thing that they've been doing before that's not working. I mean, they were literally, every time you'd write a search warrant and go in, you'd hit a dry hole. I mean, it was it was unbelievable.
Right.
And I happen to know, having worked there, I knew how violent it was. But when you work a beat, you also know it's easy to tell who the criminals are and who the innocents are. And the problem with this part of this neighborhood was that there were so many older people who had tried to raise their kids there and were too poor to just move, that were just being held hostage by all these assholes that were shooting each other and running prostitutes and running dope in and out of there. That those are the people that motivated me, and obviously the chief and city council, to try to eradicate this stuff. So when all those things were failing, my idea was, was this, and you got to remember, a lot of people didn't,
Right.
don't know. Look, and they hear about the story, and then I show up on their show. They're like, "Wait a minute, can you send Tegan?"
Wait a
please?"
minute.
I did the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute with this story. I gotta know. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, this is how you do it. Because look, I'm gaining some confidence. I've been doing this for years now. Even the dope that I was chasing in narc was I had notebooks full of hierarchy and gang members and who was bringing in what, because a lot of it was so dope related. Gang members are funding their organizations through dope and guns sales and stuff like that. So that's what they do. And so the first person I sat down was an informant that I was just bouncing the idea off of. And we're sitting and we're sharing a whiskey. And I'm like, all right, man, so here's the deal. The city's been trying to do all this stuff. They don't know what they're doing. And he's laughing too, like, yeah, man, you're not going to just do this by normal means. I said, so here's the deal. This place is completely run by Crips. There's one way in, one way out. They've got lookouts that sit on the roofs and radio everybody that's coming in and out. There's all this violence happening. The only way to get these bastards is to get the from the inside out. You got to blow it up, and I got to get into the inside of this Crip organization, and then we'll blow it from the inside out. And so I had to pause for about 36 seconds while he belly laughed. And I wish he'd spit his whiskey through his nose. He would have deserved it, but I also understood why. And little did I know that the same chat that I had with my sergeant would end the same way, only without the whiskey.
Right.
But my sergeant also knew that Tegan is the one that shows up to the narc office. Everybody goes to their 2-hour lunches. When they get there at 10:15 instead of 10, and then they all talk about where they're going to go eat, and then they go eat somewhere for 2 hours. I'm freaking just disappear because I'm out trying to make cases, and I'm not just trying to brag. I loved doing the work, and so he trusted me. And I gave him this long list of people and backed it with information that I could attest to, and said, look, this is something that I really feel like I'm capable of doing. So ultimately what I did, I had that sergeant was the key to this entire case because, again, nobody did long-term stuff. We had these little puss budgets to spend every week.
Yeah.
And I was spending twice the team budget every week. I was spending twice the team budget for the month, on even just do these samples and stuff. So I said, look, I'm going to pose as a drug dealer from South Texas who is not from the area, but my source just got busted by the feds. I'm coming up here to kind of avoid the heat, but I'm starting up a whole new hustle altogether. And so what I wanted to do purposely was present myself as an opportunity, not competition. And I also pretended to be super, super ignorant to the black gang culture, because the only gang culture that I was used to were, at the time, if something needed to be enforced, you had Los Zetas that took care of all this mess. So all I'm used to is dealing with Mexican gangs. I don't know nothing about you guys. I'm just up here trying to do some hustle. So, and the way I started was I said, all right, we're going to go in. I brought my informant and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm the one that knew the people. He didn't even know the people. So I said, but you look the part and I don't look the part, right? So I'm going to come down. You're driving. And when we get there, the whole premise is I'm helping you get your hustle on. I'm just somebody that that's kind of too big for this game, but you got to start at the bottom to work your way to the top.
Right.
Sure. Yeah,
and if I'm some kind of big hustler, I don't need to start going down to the blocks and buying $25 of hard rock. That doesn't get me anywhere. That's where the game
You're bigger
begins
than that.
and ends. Yeah. So I just went down there, start with the 20 questions, and I'm just like, hey, you don't need to ask me anything. I'm not asking you anything. I'm here for him. If you have questions, you talk to him. If you don't want to do business, that's cool. I know there's plenty of other shit around here. I'm just trying to help this kid get his hustle. And so they kind of, give me the little sideways look, and they ended up trying to make a deal with him, and I remember taking the money and handed it to him, trying to be subtle, but obviously allowing them to kind of see it, so you're just kind of making a deal that you're witnessing. Sure. And, over time it was very problematic in the beginning, but ultimately was able to just be the guy to say no often enough to where most cops are trying to make a case so fast because they know
Right.
we got a few bucks to try to make this case work, and then we do a buy bust, and then we got to move on. And
Right.
the one thing that I started doing when people started asking me questions, I started going back immediately. Started going back down there the next day alone, asking for somebody that I knew not to be there that we had met the day before. I said, "Well, I met this
Right.
bastard, the other day." And then it would give me an opportunity to be seen. And then
Right.
these other guys would give me the 20 questions. I'd say, "Hey, man, I don't even mess with that." So me coming and going, and then them seeing a little bit of money exchanging, sparked enough curiosity on their part to say, "Hey, man, so what are you looking for?" And I would kind of give them a
Right.
little bit of generalities, and then they'd say, "Well, man, you guys looking for any hard or whatever?" I said, "Well, not really, man. I got a bunch of kids, that kind of do a little business for me over by TCU, which is the university down here, on the other side of town.
Yeah.
I could kind of see if I could move a little bit of it if you want to, but that's not really my game if you want. But, if you'll tell B that I came through looking for him, man, I'll give you I'll give you a C note, and you'll see what I can
Yeah.
move, just to help you out, as long as you'll do that. And just make it look like 100 to me is nothing, but,
Yeah. It's
as
very
a favor, I'll do
nonchalant.
it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in the meantime, I'm taking the wuss budget that I have, and I have 150 ones
Right.
and about 10 20s, and it's got this giant wad, and I'm just flipping through the 20s like, there you go, and just don't go too far, you're gonna see all these ones,
Right. This guy's a baller. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
until you hit the singles.
So I would just do that. I would spend time going down there on I spent so much time off the books. I would say off the books because some of you guys know how the narc system works. I mean, you get wired up. You say, I got some kind of UC deal I want to do. You get about 6 white dudes to park in a bunch of Enterprise rentals within 100 yards. And then you go in there and say, this is Tegan, I'm about to go do this thing. And I'm like,
Right,
man,
right.
this is the hood that will not tolerate that.
Yeah.
Right,
That ain't
right.
gonna happen. Right.
No. So the more progress I made, the more I would call on guys that I knew from midnights. For instance, I'd say, "Hey, man, I'm about to go do a deal." They wouldn't ask any questions. They'd be like, "Where what do you mean to do?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm about to go in this house. I'm gonna turn my phone on hot." So I would call them just on my telephone. This is 2005, 6, 7. So
Right.
there's no sophisticated equipment, and the equipment that you did have
Nextel.
always
Let me get my Nextel.
always screwed up. Yes.
Right.
So this is literally calling them on the phone and sticking my phone in my pocket, and I would give them a code word. If you hear me say whatever it is loud enough, just drive the car through the front of the house, because I'm not going to ask for your help unless I really need it. But I thought, hell, that's better than me getting made inside of this locked mansion in here,
Yeah,
and,
right,
and
right.
getting these dudes, and then to have somebody that could actually save me. So over the first 6 or 7 months, I literally spent 7 days a week down there. And when I had no money, I would go down there again, as my tactic would be. I would ask for somebody I knew not to be there. I knew that so and so was out on a run down to Waco to get his load, so I would come in and ask for him. But when he's not there, by the time I'm rolling through so often, I would say, "Well, man, I got to kind of stash this ride. I just want to hang out. What you guys up to?" And I'd kick their ass at Madden, or I'd bring a 4-pack of Magnums and we'd drink or whatever.
Right.
And it would turn into something that was more. I was like, that's where I get as much street cred doing that as I did buying keys in the end. So
Yeah.
oh, for sure. So it gives you an opportunity to learn about them and them about you, but on a surface level. But you're
Well,
kind of
let me
learning
ask you-
names and all that kind
Yeah.
of jazz.
Let me ask you one quick question. I want to let you keep rolling, but I know that, and hearing that, we used to run into the same kind of thing where now you're going to put somebody in a UC position. Now, obviously you're working in a way bigger city, tons of cops and everything, but was there any concern? And we used to see this in the past, like, hey, this guy's been a street cop. This guy's been an aggressive guy out there. He's out making stops. He's hassling dope dealers and stuff. Now we're going to try to throw this guy into an undercover role. So was there any planning or any, discussion about that? Like, hey, we got to kind of pull him away from the road for a while, or, anything related to that? Or was it just big enough that people wouldn't know who you were?
Well, that's a great question, by the way, but it was really because there had been such a distant time from my days in patrol, because even
Okay.
the last 2 years in patrol before I went to narcotics, I was still doing nothing but coming to work in plain clothes, driving around, getting buys done. And then when everybody got off shift, we'd gear up with all the expired SWAT gear and go hit houses. So, so by then it already still been 4 or 5 years since
Okay, yeah.
since I'd been on the street, and
Yeah.
and as you guys know, you could know somebody that you work some off duty gig in your uniform, and you know somebody
Right.
intimately, and then you pass them in the street, and they'll just walk by like they'd never seen you before.
Right.
So we're kind of banking on that, to be honest with you. I was a
Yeah.
little shaggier. This is about 6 months worth of growth right here. So I did have some of that. I might have had a little more than 6 months, but I was a little shaggy. But the main principle that I stuck to, since I didn't have extensive training in this, and I only just learned by trial and error. What I did was I decided I was going to be T, was my nickname, but I was essentially thinking, how can I succeed at this without tripping myself up when I'm planning on doing this for so long.
Yeah.
The way that I did it, and I feel like now that I've talked to so many truly deeply experienced undercovers, I think it was accidental wisdom or whatever you want to say, but I essentially was myself, only inserting the sociopathic tendency to say, I actually want to see if I can, like do this. You know what I mean? Like if,
Right.
like I say, if Tegan were going to just decide one day, you know what, man, I think I could be kick-ass at moving dope and getting along with all these cats, then this is how I would approach it. And that's exactly what I did. So that when I had these conversations, I didn't have a bunch of weird stuff to remember. I mean, I had a front, obviously, but there's only so many deep conversations you can get into when you're talking
because
about
you can't
people that are
rely on
constantly-
you can't always rely on the backstory. You got to be able to
Right.
bullshit. You got to be able to talk
Yeah.
to people. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
And everybody's got a story when they're doing that kind of stuff. But you, like you said, to get in there, you have to be able to adapt. Which all cops are good at that in some form or fashion. But this is where you're really putting those skills to the test. And
Yeah.
obviously it was working well for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had plenty of times where I feel like my introversion worked to my benefit because I'm kind of quiet under pressure, and I felt like my most critical self hated those guys that were, that would get on the radio and just scream like bitches, and they're in some kind of chase, and you're like, did someone shoot you in the neck? Or can you please articulate where you're at? You know what I'm saying?
We've all worked with those people. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Can you give me his GPS coordinates, please? I don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, so a lot of my worst moments came when, guns were pulled or whatever, and there's all kinds of yelling and everything, but I'm not the one yelling. And it's not that I'm a natural badass. It's that I'm calculating, and when I calculate, the last thing I needed to do during an undercover operation is let emotion get in the way of anything.
Yeah,
but I
right.
think that's key with cop work anyway. I really felt like I would leverage emotion where I felt like it was appropriate to allow yourself some empathy or something, but
Yeah.
you really have to be very businesslike when you tackle police work, and when you're not able to separate that from your other life experiences. I think that's when the trauma really settles into people's hearts there. So when I had early on, I had somebody point a gun. I actually brought an informant with me.
Yeah.
Like a dumbass, I was bringing him with me, again, doing the same thing, because this was only supposed to be a key, and I'm supposed to be T, so I'm dealing in more than keys too. So we're there to negotiate this kilo deal, and he brings a guy who actually is from South Texas. He doesn't even speak English. I had met him once before because he was at my informant's house. And my informant had told me all these stories about him. I'm thinking, man, I don't know how much of this I believe, but
Right.
Right.
so I show up to his house and I'm honking the horn, whatever. He shows up. He looks like he just got in his pillow, just did his hair perfectly. And he's putting on a shirt. I'm thinking, dude, it's freaking 2:00 in the afternoon. We have this deal, and he has freaking Carlos with him. And I'm thinking, you son of a bitch, why do you have this caboose here? I have, we're off the books. I'm doing all this running around.
Right.
We're going to go talk about doing a significant deal for once. And you're screwing around. And
Right.
it was actually at night, actually, because by the time we got there, but the dude had been sleeping. He's taking a day nap.
Right. Right.
And we show up, and again, all you can see is, basically your feet and nothing else, because that's part of the thing I remember is they had a little bit of a street light that flickered. The rest of them didn't even work. It was just, it was a hellhole
Right.
part of town.
Right.
And I walk up to the house, and the main thing with these gangbangers is, man, you don't do business in your home. It's
Right.
just something that's kind of unheard of. This was the first time that this cat had ever said, "Hey, man, let's talk about it in person. Just come to my house and blah blah." And I was thinking, man, this is like a big sign. I'm really making some
Right.
headway here,
Right.
because this is like a lieutenant level guy who's doing moderate amounts of weight. This is guy far removed from sitting on the street and doing these deals, and he's inviting me to his house. And now I got to bring these two bastards. We pull up. I just say, follow my lead or whatever. And when I get there, the door flies open from the inside. And as you know, when it's dark, now the door flies open and it's bright light inside. And this fool that I've never seen before points a shotgun outside of the burglar bars, through the burglar bars at us. We're standing literally on this stoop that's like 3 steps up to the porch where this burglar bar is. And I'm thinking, this fool, and he's yelling, "Who, you white motherfucker, where you think you're coming here?" And I was thinking, well, first of all, I don't blame you, because look at me, and I'm not supposed to be at this cat's house, except I'm invited. Yes,
I'm a guest.
It's got to be, I'm here for beef. Freaking get the man of the house to the door, you fool. And so I'm trying to chill. He literally seems like he's on something. He's hyped and freaking out. It turns out later on, I found out these guys have been robbed 3 times. Okay. And so they're not used to having unexpected guests over there.
Or they're
Especially
thinking
a white guy.
search warrant, right?
Yeah. So I don't even know what I'm supposed to do, because I'm thinking, if this were just me, sure, I'll drill him a new eye socket. I'll step to the right, bang, bang, whatever I got to do. But this guy's, I have freaking a posse back here. So, I've got other people to worry about now.
Pillow haircut guy and my other
Yes.
guy.
Oh, this is the time where I wish I had the 5 white guys in the SUVs parked around the corner too, So eventually the guy runs to the front of the door and he's like, "Man, pimp, put it down." He's yelling and he's trying to, "I'm so sorry, come on in, T, man. I know everything's good." Well,
Sorry about this gun thing. Come on in.
Yeah.
You want sweet tea?
Carlos was not a fan of this, and this guy starts asking about, "Well, who's this Latin King motherfucker?" What blah blah, starts talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was it for him. So bad on me, because typically you search your informant before you do a covered by, which is not what we were doing. All we were doing is negotiating, but I didn't search anybody. So Carlos proceeds to pull a pistol from his waistband and shoves it in this dude's mouth. As the door is opening, the guy's still running his mouth, and Carlos charges him, shoves the gun in his mouth. And I'm thinking, oh my God! So I put
this wasn't on the ops plan. Yeah.
No. So I'm standing on the shotgun that he drops, because I don't want somebody else to pick it up, and I also don't want to look down or bend down or whatever, because all this catastrophic stuff is happening. My entire operation is falling apart in front of me.
I want to know everything going on. I want to get debriefed at how bad this is going.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't have told you exactly, because 9th grade Spanish was a long time removed from this experience. And that's all Carlos spoke. So this fool was just rattling off. And my informant was speaking Spanish back to him, trying to calm him down and all this kind of jazz. So we finally get him to pull the gun out. I send him literally, freaking go to the car,
Right.
sit your ass down.
out of here,
I'm going to stand in here and possibly be murdered. But whatever, I don't know. How's this going to go?
But you're not making it better. Right.
Yes, this fool goes over and he's spitting blood in the sink and cussing and pissed, but my guy that I was there to see, I'm just like, hey man, this isn't how deal's supposed to go, man. I don't know, I don't understand if this is how business goes with you or
Right.
what am I
Hey, your
supposed to
guy
take from
started
this?
it.
It kind of is. It kind of was because you invite me
Right,
over
right.
here and all this stuff starts, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I kept thinking, I've got to act like this is kind of how things go.
Sure.
But he was like, "Hey, man, we are good. Hit me in the morning, though. Let's figure this out." And so he ended up, again, it gave me more street cred because it's a bunch of buffoonery that is typical when you're talking about working with gangs. That's how they
Right.
flaunt their stuff. It's ridiculous, man.
So then how does this then go? Obviously you're in with them, things are going good, you're moving up with higher level people. How does it get to the FBI and what takes it to the kind of final phase of this?
Yeah, so I promised my wife when I asked her, "Hey, can I please do this?" Because you got to have the support of your family
Oh,
if you're
yeah.
going to be
Right.
gone.
Oh yeah.
I promised her. I said, "There's no way this will take more than like 2 or 3 months." And so after
A year later.
after 7.5 months, I thought I'm running out of money, but I'm like making so many connections. But
Yeah.
the only way to get to the next level is to really start spending real cash.
Oh, yeah,
We got to
right.
start
Right.
moving some bricks and doing all the stuff. So,
Yeah.
and I knew the only way that I can do that. I went to my sergeant and was like, okay, I don't know what to do. I've got all this stuff. And again, he is covering my ass like no other. I'm not even
Right.
putting details in any report. I'm doing an incident report with a service number on it. And then I'm taking all my notes and keeping them in my house because I don't even want them in the narc unit. And like nobody knows where I'm at. They all think I'm a lazy bastard.
Right.
So that's what we started to do. And the obvious starting point was DEA. And we sat down with them. I said, look, I've got, this is my hierarchy chart. This is, I already have like these 14 cases and these
Right.
guys lead into this funnel and this is where it's all coming from. And this guy's got
Yeah.
the Mexican connection and this. So I really had a whole lot of information by then, but I was really limited on resources.
Yeah.
And the DEA was acting like, "Hey, this is a great case. Just give it to us, and we'll take it and run with it." And I'm thinking, "No, I ain't.
No.
I ain't
No.
giving it to somebody to go. I'm not making no intro of some rookie or whatever. I don't care,
Right.
DEA or otherwise.
Yeah.
No,
I got
this
7
I'm
months in
stuck.
this. Let's go.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm riding this out." And it was maybe it was some ego too, but I really don't think it was ego as much as this was kind of my baby at this point. I really wanted to see this to the end.
Sure.
And I had
Right.
made it so far that people were now hitting me up like, "T, man, you got to do some business, man. They're trying to hook me up with deals. I got bad guys introducing me to bad guys and stuff." So I'm thinking, it makes no sense, honestly, to bring in someone else at all.
Right.
ATF didn't have the resources, and then somebody said, "Well, look, there's this FBI agent that's recently been assigned to the gang unit, and she's assigned to the Gang and Violent Crimes Task Force via the FBI. She's an FBI agent, and she's currently working on a case. But when that case is over, they might be interested." And we went and visited, and they were ecstatic and like, "Man, we have the resources. We have a single agent that's out there, and she's a hustler," which she was. She was still working on another case. And so she was also thrilled about, allowing me to be the undercover. And so the only difficult part was navigating the transition between leaving my department supervisor and coming in to be overseen by a case agent who was busy with another case for a few
Right.
months.
Yeah.
And so it was really serendipitous though, because as great as she was, it was better for me to be able to say, "Hey, I got this deal. I need $17K for a brick and something. And by the way, could I get a car?" And she would put in the request, and then I would have the resources to work. And so I was still off the books. My sergeant was then thinking, "Well, he's working under the FBI," and the FBI was thinking, "Well, he has a sergeant." And now I'm really off the books. So for those few months, and I was off the books. To me, was actually advantageous because I was able to actually do a lot of the politicking and the hanging out and the talking shit about football teams and girls and drinking beer or whatever. Because it was really the only thing that was pushing this thing forward was me spending every single day down there. So it really allowed me to make a whole lot more progress. And then once she got involved, then it was a little bit more structured, and certainly leading to the end where I'd finally made so many cases, and we got to the kingpin. We have a kingpin in Fort Worth, Texas, which is kind of the indescript city anyway, so close to Dallas, and people don't think it's, it's 1 million people. It's the 10th largest city in the U.S., so it's still got quite a hood.
Right.
But this kingpin was a Fort Worth native working as a crip, doing $250K a week in product, and he was the guy he was literally, and was crazy to me. It's got to be crazy to you too. I still haven't heard of it. He was like, when he would make his buys, this Hispanic guy would take his money and disappear for 2 hours and come back with the stuff, and he would come back with it. But I was like, dude, I can't believe you're giving this guy.
Right.
You'd be like, here's 175K, and then the guy would disappear for 2 hours. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, he definitely knows who he's messing with and making sure he's not making sure he's coming back. With that. Right.
Yeah. Well, so
Otherwise, it'd be in a
smart.
dumpster.
Yeah. He had a real estate license and a bunch of car lots, a couple of storage facilities, and all this type of stuff. He had his shit
Good
together.
way to launder money. Yeah.
Yeah, so he had all that stuff together. It was one of those experiences that that I had a couple of experiences where by the time I'd gotten in that deep and people were hitting me up for deals, I was able to be really selective about who I was doing deals with. And the only times that I ever leveraged an informant later on was to verify whether this guy might be a crip or not, because otherwise I have no interest in doing dope deals, especially small dope deals. I'd already exhausted that early on, and then I'm talking to these cats about doing bigger deals. So ultimately, it came time to wrap all this stuff up. And the best thing that the agent assigned to my case, Jennifer Coffindaffer, was the agent, and she got all of the federal prosecutory stuff set up with the AUSA and got all the paperwork ready. We had people spending 24, 36 hours in the U.S. Attorney's office putting together warrants and maps of locations, and we had this big meeting in a gymnasium with 250 cops from all over the neighboring counties and different divisions and stuff, because I had 51 targets that we had to arrest that I had been working undercover with for over 18 months, and they were about to find out who I was, and I needed them all to get wrapped up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No squirters. We gotta get them all.
And that word travels fast when you have open up a case like that. You want to try to hit as many of those places as you can and get all those people rounded up, because, like you said, people take off, other things happen. You got to worry about your own safety. There's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah. It was really traumatic for me too, because as unemotional as I stayed during the case, when they forced me essentially to end it anyway, and I felt like by then I'd established all these relationships, and that's when I just became overwhelmed with the emotion that I'd pent up and ignored for all that time.
Right.
Just thinking, these guys are like, so many of them I would love to stay away forever, and yet so many of them I thought have a lot of potential, and I thought, man, if you just didn't have that sociopathic tendency, when you're pissed, you go off and shoot up houses or whatever, but otherwise you're like just a dude. I mean, we could totally hang out. We talk about things that we had in common all the time. And so it was emotionally traumatic for me. It was just kind of an overwhelming feeling of, one, the case that I'd lived and just done 80-hour weeks and spent all this energy in addition to the fact that I thought, man, some of these guys, I have, I care deeply for, that I want to succeed, but I now have zero control. I had all the control during the undercover operation, but when they wrap it up and say, hey, the rest of this is up to the judge and their defense attorneys, then all I can do is hope that they cooperate. Man, I hope this guy says this and this and this, because the only thing that I could do, which I did for several of them, was testify on their behalf, on their character. And once I did that for one, I think several others decided they wanted to cooperate and knew that I'd keep my word there. But most of them, obviously, for obvious reasons, didn't believe that I was going to support them if they cooperated. And many of the other ones just couldn't wrap their head around the fact that I was law enforcement at all, and they would
Right.
be bitching at the
Like, holy
FBI agent
shit.
that I was sitting next to. Yeah, they bitching
Right.
at me and said, T, she's lying. Tell her, T. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm thinking, man, don't you understand?
You're like,
There's
I'm this
two people
good.
over here."
I'm this good.
It was not that. It was bad. I felt terrible. I was like, God, dude, come on. So
Yeah.
in my mind, again, I'm pleading with them, thinking, I'm earnestly pleading with you, man. I promise I will back you up. I think you have something to offer. If you cooperate, I'll even testify for you, whatever.
Right.
And they wouldn't believe me, and then they'd go off and take this hammering because these guys got tons of time. It was a conspiracy case, so most of them
Yeah.
got between 17 and 50.
Wow.
And,
All 51?
Yeah, so yes, all 51. 10 went state and 41 went federal.
Wow.
Wow.
Until Biden's clemency list came out, there were still several of them in. And the only blessing in this latest clemency thing is that there's been one dude who was the oldest guy in my case, and he got screwed over so bad because he was starting to cooperate. He was thinking about, working with us a little bit and give us some information. And one of the bullies in this case sent some people over to his brother's house and then got one of the jailers to slip a note under his cell saying, you better recant this stuff, and then they give his brother's address and all this stuff. And so he recants it, not to us. He writes a letter directly to the federal judge and says, I've been lying this whole time and blah, 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 and just seals his fate forever because this judge is like, oh, F me, no F you. I'm going to lay it down.
And that's a
the
tough
dude that
game,
threatened
too.
him. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's like I said. The dude that threatened him ended up flipping on everybody else anyway. So, which is, which makes
that's
it
what
insult to injury. Is so frustrating.
Right.
And that's what I was going to say is that's a tough game because you go back then and you're trying to deal with people that you essentially put cases on and try to tell them like, no, listen, I'll work with you and help you, if you cooperate with us. And they're that's as a cop, as someone who works narcotics, that's a hard sell to do sometimes because you're like, why am I going to, you just put a case on me and as an undercover and now you think that I'm going to trust you to, work this off. So that's to be able to do that is like a real testament to your skills, and just what you did as an undercover, because it's their perception of you. It's like, hey man, they do a job, you're doing a job, but now we're at this point where, hey, listen, game over, but we can be somebody who can maybe help you get out from under this if you're willing to cooperate. And a lot of people, they tell you to fuck off and okay, it is what it is. But sometimes if you can get through to people, it's like, no, really, this, you might not believe it, but this might benefit you to provide some information on somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think I would attribute it less to skill and more to just my authentic, maybe just the authenticity in the way that I presented it. Because, like I said, I wasn't that much less than T when I was talking to him afterwards.
Right.
Because, like I said, my personality is almost the same. And so all I can think is that I may have been a little more convincing in that regard. And this one cat that got screwed over was the oldest guy in my case, so he essentially had a death sentence because he was 20 years older than most of these cats that got wrapped up are 26, 27, 28 years old, and he was damn near 50 at the time. Or, in his 40s, and too old to be playing around, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
And he and I were pen pals for years and years, and I was in the process. I had an attorney hired, and we were trying to get, some kind of what they call what's the release? Oh god dang, I'm gonna forget what it's called.
The early release.
The release part. Well, it was a
conditional release.
Yeah, it was a release for specific purposes. It's typically reserved for people that are ill or dying. But compassionate release. We were trying to get a compassionate release paperwork done, and we had him filling out all this stuff, and we're making a decent amount of progress on it. And then he got that clemency, so it was really celebratory. He's gotten out, and I've since been able to get together with him and hang out and buy him some clothes and help him find work and whatever. It's been a real success story so far. I mean, just all I can do is hope that he stays away from all this mess. But he's an old guy.
Yeah, right.
60, 67 years old now. So he doesn't
Right.
want all this mess.
So
And
did
Right.
you?
but
Once
everyone
this
else
all,
is out too.
once
Yeah.
you wrapped up with all this, then what did you do after that? I mean, that's like kind of a that's almost got to be a hard thing. Like, okay, come back and now I'm
It
just going to
was.
work like financial cases or something.
Right, right.
I know.
Like
It
what do we
was.
do now?
You know how fast you
Yes.
were going, ma'am?
Right.
Hey, there's a beautiful art to all that. I don't knock any of it. There was and it is free of a job as doing police work is. I mean, you essentially clock in and go hustle or be lazy
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
This was the most free I'd ever been, and it was rewarding and emotionally taxing and so much
Yeah.
time. And I doubled my income because the feds were paying all my overtime, so I made a
Right,
ton
right,
of
right,
money.
right.
But my wife talked me into staying because I was emotionally completely drained when this ended, and I actually started one more case. And now that we kind of really knew the ins and outs of how this worked, and I knew how to build a federal case now because of trial and error, I
Sure.
started working a Mexican mafia case and was driving down to Freeport, where they were bringing in shipments of steel that had a bunch of guns present as well that were coming straight up 35 up into Fort Worth and Dallas area and stuff. So I'd started
cow.
working that, and it got finger screwed so bad because
Wow.
I mean, now everybody, was interested in being
Right,
involved in
right.
this big new case and whatever's like it. The only reason it worked the first time is that all you fools stayed away from me.
Right,
And,
right.
what I needed was I said, let me pick like 5 guys for a team. And it
Right.
would have
Right.
been really great. Let me pick all of your A players from all these,
Yeah.
and it would have been great having a team of people that were really skilled and in support of the end goal. But it didn't work out. It was super frustrating, and I stayed on for another year in the gang unit and tried to do some work. But I felt myself coming to work unmotivated, and I thought, man, this is the polar opposite of
Right.
of me. This is just not me. I show up doing police work excited every day. I'm the guy that had a shit ton of vacation time to sell back.
Right.
Because I just love doing the work, and so that was my sign. I was like, man, if I'm the drag in this unit, then something is wrong. And so
Right. Time to go.
so I left and decided to do something with no risk, like leave with no retirement and start a company from scratch, something like that.
There you
But
go.
you wrote a
Yeah.
book, right? You wrote a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yes. So people were encouraging me when this came out. Obviously, undercover work is thankless, and it's by design, which is fine, because when it came out and all this stuff was hitting the papers, whatever, I wasn't a part of any of that. The FBI was up, she was talking, the head of the narcotics unit and the gang unit were all clamoring and it was fine with me. It was great. This is a great
Yeah,
operation,
yeah.
whatever.
Team effort, right?
And then a couple of cats nominated me for an officer of the year and leaked something to the paper or whatever. It ended up being something where it brought a bunch of attention to this. And so people started saying, man, you need to write a book. This is a crazy story. And I thought, well, I mean, it sounds cool, but it seems really like a bunch of self-glorification to me. It didn't make sense to me because it was such a personal experience.
Sure.
And there was as much triumph as there was tragedy and heartbreak in this
Right.
whole experience that I had. And it wasn't really like a Batman story. So I was like, trust me, you don't want to read this. This is just as much messy stuff as there is cool stuff,
Right.
And then somebody said, man, you should talk to this guy who's in this neighborhood. It's adjacent to the neighborhood. This whole thing started in what we called the fishbowl, which was, essentially because of the one way in, one way out type of thing. And they mentored children of incarcerated parents. It's like, how do I not know about this place? And so I just went to go check it out. And I was like, wow, the very kids from this case could be served from there. And we started doing a count. So as you do these cases, we do debriefs with all these people. And some of the debriefs aren't just about, hey, give me some murder cases. Some of the stuff is, what's your family life like? Do you have kids? Do you whatever? And some of these guys were talking about, I have 3 kids that are all under 1, but they're different moms. I can't remember the middle name of this one. It was like really, really depressing stuff.
Yeah.
And so between those 2 experiences, I started putting together like, man, like I feel like I'm contributing to the salvation of this part of the neighborhood that ended up blowing up into a bigger part of the neighborhood where, obviously you're not going to eradicate dope, but at least the violent criminals were taken off the street. So, but it made me realize that, man, this is only a piece of the problem. I said, there's in 18 years, now we found 104 kids from these 51 convicts now. So 104 kids left. And so I'm like, man, all those kids now are going to be fatherless in a poor neighborhood or with dad in prison. And statistically, somebody like me is going to have to start doing this all over. The next 20 years, I have to do this all over again.
Right.
What is being solved here? Nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was my inspiration and motivation to write the book. So I decided, okay, I'm going to write this book and we'll donate all the profits to charities that mentor children of incarcerated parents like that. And we started with that one so that, we actually served a lot of the children that were affected by this very case and then onward. So it's kind of, it
What's the name of the book, and where can our listeners get it?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. It's Life in the Fishbowl, and you can get it on Amazon. You used to be able to get it in Barnes and Noble and stuff too, but as bookstores started struggling, so did book distributors. And when mine went out of business, I said, just keep it on Amazon.
Right.
Fine. But you can get it on a Kindle or paperback, or I narrated a version as well. So, you can find it there. And again, it's not a Batman superhero story. Plenty of the traumatic things are in there. The exciting things are in there, but also the realistic things. The first time I ever made national news was, banging the door of the wrong house. And it's in the book.
Don't give away all the stories. Let's give
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, Tegan, that's a great story. Thank you so much for coming on. And now what we'd like to do is like to invite you back and kind of get the next chapter of how you're working with these kids and what your thoughts are on your processes, because we've talked about in the past how we take a lot of people to jail, and it's a calling to do that, but you're seeing the same people come back to jail, and we've all talked about solutions and kind of why politicians don't want to listen. So that's going to be the next show we're going to have you back on. We're going to talk about that. So, but thank you so much for your service. I mean, it's great work. It was a great story, and I'm glad you made it out in one piece. And for all of our listeners, please go over and get your podcast. Download, leave a rating, a review, subscribe. Please let your friends know about this episode. Let them know about Tegan and his story, and what a great job he did. You can go to our website, 3copstalk.com. You can leave us an email there if you have questions, concerns, want to be a guest for a show, have a suggestion for a guest for a show, and get old episodes. And also you can email us the rest at 3copstalk@gmail.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Have a blessed day. And Tegan, again, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great story and great work.
Honored to be with you too. I appreciate what you guys do too very much.
Thank you.
Anytime.
All right. I think you hit stop.
Stop.
If you didn't hit the stop button, I'm about to